6 months had passed since humanity entered the war. 6 months of chaos and destruction and change. 6 months that had transformed the galaxy forever. The Dravok, Dominion had fallen. Supreme Commander Draxus died in the final battle. His command ship had been destroyed by a precision strike, a single human warship slipping through his defensive screen to deliver a killing blow. The remaining Dravok leadership had surrendered 3 days later. They had no choice. Their fleet was shattered. Their supply lines were gone. Their conquered worlds were rising in rebellion. Inspired by the humans who had shown them that the Dravok could bleed, the Galactic Council convened once more in the great chamber of Nexus Prime. But the mood was different now. The fear remained, but it had changed form. The delegates no longer feared the Dravok. They feared the future. High Chancellor Varath stood at the center platform. He looked older than before. The stress of the past months had taken its toll. We are gathered today to formally welcome a new species into the galactic community, Varath announced. The people of Earth have proven themselves in ways that no words can adequately describe. They answered our call for help. They fought our enemy. They saved countless lives. We owe them a debt that can never be repaid. The chamber doors opened. Admiral Grace Bennett walked in, wearing her simple uniform. She had refused all offers of ceremonial dress or military honors. She was a soldier, not a politician. She dressed as a soldier. Behind her came Commander Nathan Cole and a small delegation of human officers. They moved with quiet confidence, taking their places at the platform reserved for new member species. Varath continued the ceremony, the formal language, the ancient rituals, the symbolic gestures that had welcomed species into the council for thousands of years. Through it all, Bennett remained patient and respectful. When the ceremony concluded, the council offered humanity a permanent seat among the 12 species. Bennett accepted on behalf of Earth. The chamber erupted in polite applause, but the real conversations happened after the ceremony. In private rooms and quiet corridors, Counselor Mector approached Admiral Bennett while she was reviewing reports in a side chamber. He moved slowly, his massive frame blocking the doorway. "Admiral Bennett," he said carefully, "may I speak with you?" Bennett looked up from her datapad. "Of course, Counselor. What can I do for you?" Mector stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. "I opposed your involvement in this war. I warned the Council that humanity was too dangerous. I believed that inviting you into our conflict would lead to catastrophe." Bennett nodded. "I am aware of your position, Counselor. You were not wrong to be concerned, and yet you saved us." Mector paused, struggling with words that did not come easily to him. "Your forces destroyed the Dravok military completely. Your soldiers liberated worlds that we had given up for lost. You did what the Council could not do. What we were too weak to do, we did what was necessary. Yes." Mector moved closer. "That is what concerns me. I have studied your operations. I have reviewed your tactics. You could have destroyed the Dravok entirely. You had the power to wipe their species from existence. Yet you stopped. You accepted their surrender. You allowed them to live. Why?" Bennett set down her datapad and faced the Counselor directly. "Because destroying them would have been a mistake." "A mistake?" "They slaughtered millions of our citizens. They enslaved entire worlds. They showed no mercy. Why should they receive any?" Bennett was silent for a moment. Then she spoke quietly. "Counselor, how much do you know about human history?" Mector hesitated. "I know that your species has fought more wars than most others combined. I know that your capacity for violence is exceptional. That is why we feared you." "Then you know only part of the story." Bennett walked to the viewport and looked out at the stars. "Yes, we have fought many wars. Terrible wars. Wars that killed millions of our own people. But we have also learned from those wars. We learned that enemies who are humiliated and broken will always seek revenge. We learned that cycles of violence can last for generations. We learned that the only way to end a war truly is to end it with wisdom, not just strength. She turned back to face Mektor. The Dravok are defeated. Their military is destroyed. Their leaders are dead or captured. But their people remain. Millions of ordinary Dravok who were not soldiers, who did not choose this war. If we had destroyed them completely, we would have created a wound that would never heal. Their survivors would hate us forever. Their children would grow up dreaming of revenge. The war would never truly end. Mektor considered her words. But by showing mercy, you risk allowing them to rebuild, to threaten us again someday. Perhaps. But that is a risk we can manage. We will help them rebuild. We will integrate them into the galactic community. We will show them a better path. And if they choose violence again, we will stop them again. But we will give them the chance to choose differently. The counselor was silent for a long moment. Your species confuses me, Admiral. You fight with such brutality. You destroy your enemies without hesitation. And then you offer them mercy and help them stand again. These things seem contradictory. Bennett smiled slightly. They are not contradictory, Counselor. They are complementary. We fight hard because we want peace. We destroy the ability to wage war because we want war to end. And we show mercy because we want the peace to last. That is the lesson humanity learned through centuries of conflict. It is a lesson we paid for in blood. Mektor nodded slowly. He extended his massive hand in the human gesture of respect that he had studied. Perhaps the Council was right to fear you, Admiral. Not because you are dangerous, but because you understand things that we do not. Perhaps we have much to learn from humanity. Bennett shook his hand firmly. And we have much to learn from you, Counselor. That is what allies do. They learn from each other. In the gallery above the great chamber, Commander Nathan Cole and Ambassador Thelina watched the delegates mingling below. The ceremony was over, but the real work of building a new galactic order was just beginning. Thelina stood close to Nathan, her large dark eyes reflecting the lights of the chamber. I was terrified when I came to Earth, she admitted. I was terrified of what I might be unleashing. All the stories we had about your species. All the warnings. I thought I might be trading one monster for another. Nathan leaned against the railing. And now? Now I am still terrified, Thelina said with a small smile. But it is a different kind of terror. I look at your people, and I see something that I do not fully understand. You have such capacity for destruction. Yet you also have such capacity for compassion, for building, for protecting those who cannot protect themselves. I do not know which is the true face of humanity. Nathan looked down at the chamber below, where Admiral Bennett was now speaking with a group of delegates from liberated worlds. They were thanking her. Some were crying with relief. Both are true, he said quietly. That is the secret of humanity, Ambassador. We contain contradictions. We are capable of terrible darkness and incredible light. The question is always which side we choose to embrace. For a long time, we only turned that choice inward, against ourselves. Now we have the chance to turn it outward, toward the galaxy. And which will you choose? Nathan smiled. We are here, are we not? We came when you called. We fought for people we had never met. We saved worlds that had feared us. I think that tells you something about which side we prefer. Thelina nodded slowly. The galaxy has changed, Commander. Earth is no longer the isolated world kept in fearful quarantine. Your species has taken its place among the stars. What happens now? Nathan looked at the ceiling, at the vast dome that showed the endless expanse of space beyond. Stars by the billions. Worlds without number. A future without limits. Now we build something better, he said. Together. Below them, Admiral Bennett concluded her conversations and took her seat at the council table. The first human to sit among the 12 species. The first of many to come. The galaxy had changed. The balance of power had shifted. And the Galactic Council now understood a simple truth that they would never forget. When darkness comes, when hope seems lost, when all other options have failed, there is no better ally than a species that has spent its entire existence learning how to survive. Humanity had arrived, and the stars would never be the same. The Earth fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Drevaux-controlled space. 412 warships arranged in precise formation. At the center of the fleet, the carrier vessel Resolute hummed with quiet power. Commander Nathan Cole stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display with calm focus. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. The Dravok have detected our arrival. Their response fleet is forming at the Cavith system. Nathan nodded. How many? Approximately 800 vessels, sir. They outnumber us 2-1. The officers on the bridge exchanged nervous glances. Nathan simply smiled. Good. That means they will be confident. Confident enemies make mistakes. Signal all ships. Begin Operation Shattered Dawn. The human fleet did not advance toward the enemy. Instead, it split apart. Dozens of smaller groups peeled away from the main formation, each heading in a different direction. They scattered like seeds in the wind, disappearing into the vastness of space. On the Dravok command ship, Supreme Commander Draxus watched the human movements with confusion. He was a massive creature, his body covered in thick black armor that had been grafted to his flesh through painful surgery. He had commanded the Dominion's fleets for 40 years. He had conquered 100 worlds. He had never seen an enemy behave this way. What are they doing? He demanded. They are breaking formation. They are retreating before we even engage. His tactical advisor studied the displays. They appear to be dispersing throughout our territory, Supreme Commander. Individual groups are heading toward different systems. Then they are fools. Small groups cannot threaten us. Our garrisons will destroy them easily. Draxus ordered his fleet to pursue the largest human group, believing it to be their command element. His 800 ships moved as one, a wall of destruction that had never been defeated. But the humans were not where he expected them to be. The first reports came in 6 hours later. A human strike force had attacked the Drevaux supply depot in the Viren system. They had destroyed the fuel reserves and vanished before the local garrison could respond. An hour after that, another report arrived. Communications relays in the core sector had been disabled. Then another report. A shipyard in the Malak system was under attack. Then another, and another. Draxus watched his tactical map with growing horror. The humans were everywhere. They were striking at targets across Drevaux space, hitting soft points that had never been defended because no enemy had ever reached them. Supply lines were being cut. Communication networks were going dark. Fuel depots were burning. This is impossible, Draxus growled. No fleet can coordinate across such distances. No enemy can be in so many places at once. But the humans were not operating as a fleet. They were operating as hunters. Each group moved independently, following plans prepared before the battle even began. They needed no orders from a central command. They knew their targets. They knew their methods. They struck and vanished and struck again. The Dravok fleet tried to respond. They split their forces to chase the human groups. But every time they arrived at a location, the humans were already gone. The prey had become the predators. While the space battle unfolded, human ground forces began their own operations. Troop transports slipped past Dravok defenses and landed on the occupied world of Cavith 3. The drop zones were carefully chosen, far from Dravok strongholds. In terrain that favored small unit tactics, Sergeant Paula Marsh led her squad through the ruins of what had once been a thriving city. The Dravok had burned it during their invasion. The bodies of the original inhabitants still lay in the streets, left to rot as a warning to others. Paula was a veteran of Earth's conflicts. She had fought in the South American campaigns and the Arctic War. She had seen death before, but the scale of the Dravok cruelty still made her jaw tighten with anger. "Contact ahead," her scout reported through the communication link. "Dravok patrol. 12 soldiers. They have prisoners." Paula moved forward, using the rubble for cover. She saw them now. A group of Dravok warriors marching a line of alien civilians through the street. The prisoners were bound and bleeding. Some of them could barely walk. "Rules of engagement?" her corporal asked quietly. "No survivors," Paula replied. "Take them fast and quiet." The squad moved like shadows. They had trained for this. Night operations. Urban combat. Silent elimination. The Dravok never saw them coming. 8 seconds later, 12 Dravok soldiers lay dead. The prisoners stared at their liberators with shock and disbelief. They had never seen creatures like these before. Soft skin, no natural armor. Small and fragile compared to the Dravok. Yet the Dravok were dead, and these strange beings were alive. Paula cut the bonds from the prisoners and pointed toward the east. "Safe zone is 10 kilometers that way. Move fast. Stay quiet. More of us are coming." The prisoners fled into the darkness. Paula led her squad deeper into enemy territory. Over the following days, the pattern repeated across the planet. Human squads struck at night. They ambushed patrols. They destroyed weapon caches. They freed prisoners and vanished before the Dravok could respond. The garrison outnumbered the humans 5 to 1, but numbers meant nothing when the enemy refused to stand and fight. The Dravok, commander on Kava 3, was a veteran named Korath. He had crushed rebellions on a dozen worlds. He had broken resistance movements with overwhelming force. But he had never faced an enemy like this. His soldiers began to fear the darkness. They reported shadows that moved and struck without warning. They found their comrades dead in places that should have been secure. They heard whispers of creatures that felt no pain and showed no mercy. Korath ordered his troops to form defensive positions. He pulled them back from the outer districts and concentrated them around key installations. He believed that superior numbers would protect them if they stayed together. He was wrong. The humans adapted. They planted explosives in the streets around Dravok positions. They cut power to defensive systems. They disrupted communications and supply deliveries. They made the Dravok fortress into a prison. Then they attacked. Paula led the assault on the main command center. Her squad moved through a drainage tunnel that the Dravok had overlooked. They emerged inside the perimeter, behind the defensive lines. By the time the Dravok realized what was happening, the humans were already among them. The battle was brief and brutal. Human soldiers fought with a ferocity that shocked the Dravok. They did not retreat when wounded. They did not surrender when outnumbered. They pressed forward with absolute determination, taking ground 1 meter at a time. Korath died with a human blade in his chest. His last sight was Paula Marsh standing over him, her face splattered with blood that was not her own. "You should have stayed home," she said quietly. News of the liberation of Kava 3 spread through the Dravok ranks like a disease. Soldiers who had never known fear began to hesitate. Officers who had always been confident started to make mistakes. The whispers grew louder. The humans fought differently. The humans did not follow the rules. The humans could not be stopped. Supreme Commander Draxus received the reports on his command ship. His fleet was still chasing shadows across the stars, unable to pin down the human strike forces. His supply lines were in chaos. His communication networks were failing. And now, his ground forces were being defeated by enemies who should have been easy prey. For the first time in his long career, Draxus felt something he had never felt before: fear. The news reached the Galactic Council before Ambassador Thelina returned. High Chancellor Vareth received the report in his private chambers aboard Nexus Prime. He read it 3 times before he could accept what it said. Earth had responded. Humanity was mobilizing for war. And they were coming. Vareth called an emergency session immediately. The delegates gathered in the Great Chamber with confusion and fear on their faces. They had heard rumors, but no one knew the full truth. When Ambassador Thelina entered the chamber, every eye turned toward her. She walked to the center platform with her head held high. She had made her choice. She would not apologize for it. High Chancellor Vareth spoke first. His voice was cold and controlled. Ambassador Thelina, you left this station without permission. You traveled to a restricted system. You made contact with a classified species. You did all of this without the authority of this council. Do you deny any of this? I deny nothing, Thelina replied. I did what needed to be done. While this council debated, my people died. While you argued about options and risks, the Dravok burned our worlds. I refused to sit and wait for my turn to be slaughtered. Councilor Mector rose from his seat. His gray scales seemed darker than usual, his posture rigid with anger. You have doomed us all, he said. The Dravok are a threat, we understand. They are brutal, but they are predictable. They conquer and enslave. But humanity is something else entirely. You have unleashed a force that no one can control. Thelina faced him directly. Control was never the goal. Survival was the goal. The humans have agreed to fight the Dravok. That gives us a chance. A chance? Mector laughed bitterly. Let me show you what you have given us. He activated the central display. Images appeared in the air, transmitted from Council observation probes still monitoring Earth's solar system. The chamber fell silent. The images showed shipyards orbiting Earth, massive structures that stretched for kilometers. Every bay was active. Every dock was filled. Warships were being assembled at a pace that defied logic. Vessels that had been half complete 3 weeks ago were now whole and armed and ready for launch. They are building faster than any species we have ever observed, Mector said. In 3 weeks, they have produced more combat vessels than we knew they possessed. Our analysts estimate their fleet will number over 400 ships by the time they reach the conflict zone. The display shifted to ground images. Training facilities across Earth and Mars. Soldiers drilling with weapons and equipment. The exercises were intense and brutal. Injuries were common. Deaths were not unheard of. The humans pushed themselves to the breaking point and beyond. They trained their warriors to ignore pain, Mector continued. They condition them to fight until their bodies fail. They do not value the lives of their own soldiers the way we do. They see death in battle as an acceptable cost. More images appeared. Strategy rooms filled with officers. Maps and data covering every wall. Human tacticians studied Dravok battle patterns with focused intensity. They analyzed weaknesses. They identified targets. They planned not for defense, but for offense. A young aide named Specialist Kira stepped forward with a data pad. She was nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she presented her report. High Chancellor, I have additional intelligence. Human communications are partially encrypted, but we have decoded enough to understand their intentions. They are not planning to defend Council territory. They are planning to attack Dravok space directly. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Kira continued. Their military doctrine prioritizes offensive action. They believe the best way to protect their allies is to destroy the enemy's ability to wage war. They are targeting Draviak shipyards, supply depots, command centers, and population centers. They intend to break the Dominion completely. High Chancellor Vorath raised his hand for silence. His face was pale. Population centers? He asked quietly. They intend to attack civilians? Kira hesitated. Their plans include what they call strategic bombardment of industrial worlds. They calculate that destroying the Dravok manufacturing base will shorten the war. They have estimated acceptable casualty levels in the millions. The chamber was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Counselor Mector finally broke the silence. This is what we feared. This is why we kept them isolated. They do not see war the way we do. They see it as a calculation. Lives lost versus lives saved. Cities destroyed versus war shortened. They have no concept of proportional response or measured engagement. They fight to annihilate. Ambassador Thelina stepped forward. And because of that, they will win. The Dravok have slaughtered millions of our citizens already. They will slaughter millions more if they are not stopped. If humanity's methods are harsh, perhaps that is what this war requires. Vorath shook his head slowly. You do not understand. This is not about the Dravok anymore. The Dravok are a temporary threat. They can be negotiated with, contained, managed. But humanity is different. Once they enter the galactic stage, there is no going back. They will see the weakness of our species. They will see how easily the Dravok conquered us. And then what? What happens when the war is over and humanity realizes they are the strongest force in known space? The question hung in the air. No one had an answer. High Chancellor Vorath made a decision. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet, which was now less than 2 weeks from the conflict zone. Earth forces, this is High Chancellor Vorath of the Galactic Council. We appreciate your willingness to assist in our conflict with the Dravok Dominion. However, we urge restraint in your approach. We ask that you coordinate with Council military commanders and follow established rules of engagement. We ask that you avoid excessive force and limit civilian casualties where possible. The response came within the hour. It was not from Admiral Bennett. It was from a communications officer, relaying a simple message. Restraint is what got your people killed. Watch and learn. The channel closed. Vorath stared at the empty display. Around him, the council delegates sat in stunned silence. They had asked for help. They had received it. But now they understood the price. Humanity was coming. And humanity did not take orders. In the weeks that followed, the council received regular updates from the front lines. The Dravok continued their advance. 2 more worlds fell. Refugee ships flooded the core systems, carrying survivors with stories of horror and destruction. And always, in the background, the human fleet drew closer. 400 warships armed with weapons that made council analysts nervous. Soldiers trained to fight without mercy. Commanders planning operations that no council species would ever authorize. The galaxy held its breath. The Dravok did not know what was coming. The council was no longer sure they wanted to know. But on the occupied worlds, in the camps and prisons where enslaved citizens awaited death, whispers began to spread. Stories of a new species. A species that did not bow to conquerors. A species that fought back. The humans were coming. And for the first time since the war began, the oppressed dared to hope. The journey to Earth's solar system took Ambassador Thelina 4 days. 4 days of watching the stars pass by her viewport. 4 days of questioning her decision. 4 days of wondering if she was about to save her people or doom the entire galaxy. Her ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the outer edge of the system. She had studied the maps carefully. The humans had expanded beyond their home world in recent decades. They had colonies on their moon and on the red planet they called Mars. They had mining stations. scattered through the asteroid belt, and observation posts on the moons of their gas giants. Thelina aimed for Mars. The intelligence reports said the humans maintained their largest off-world military installation there. She did not try to hide her approach. Her ship broadcast standard diplomatic signals on all frequencies. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to be found. It did not take long. 3 human vessels appeared on her sensors within the hour. They were smaller than her ship, but clearly built for combat. Their hulls were angular and practical, designed for function rather than beauty. They moved with a speed and precision that surprised her. A voice crackled through her communication system. It was deep and calm, speaking in the trade language that most spacefaring species used. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Nathan Cole of the United Earth Defense Force. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourself and state your intentions. Thelina opened a visual channel. She saw the human for the first time. He had brown skin and short, dark hair. His eyes were steady and watchful. He wore a simple uniform with no decorations or symbols of rank beyond a small patch on his shoulder. I am Ambassador Thelina of the Valari people, she said. I come in peace. I come seeking help. There was a pause. She could see Nathan exchanging glances with someone off-screen. Ambassador, we were under the impression that Galactic civilization wanted nothing to do with Earth. We have detected your observation probes over the decades. We know we have been watched. We also know we have been avoided. Thelina nodded. There was no point in lying. You are correct. The Galactic Council made a decision 60 years ago to keep Earth isolated from galactic affairs. That decision was based on fear. Fear of what? Fear of you. Fear of what your species is capable of. Nathan leaned back in his chair. A small smile crossed his face, though it did not reach his eyes. And now you have come anyway, which means something has scared you more than we do. What happened? Thelina told him everything. She spoke of the Dravok Dominion and their century of secret preparation. She described the attacks on the member worlds. She shared the casualty reports, the images of burning cities, the final transmissions from dying colonies. Nathan listened without interruption. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes grew harder as she spoke. When she finished, he asked a simple question. Why come to us? You have other species. Surely some of them have military forces. We do, Thelina admitted. But our forces are weak. We have lived in peace for so long that we forgot how to make war. The Dravok never forgot. They spent 100 years preparing for this moment. They outnumber us. They outgun us. At our current rate of loss, the entire council will fall within a year. Nathan was silent for a long moment. And you think we can help? I think you are the only ones who can. He studied her face through the screen. Your council classified us as a threat. Your reports called us dangerous. They said we treat warfare as an art form. Were they wrong? Thelina shook her head slowly. No, they were not wrong. That is exactly why I am here. We need someone dangerous. We need someone who understands war the way your people do. Nathan stood from his chair. Wait here, Ambassador. I need to make some calls. The communication channel went silent, but the visual remained. Thelina could see Nathan speaking to others, making gestures, pointing at screens. Hours passed. Her ship drifted peacefully in the void while the human vessels maintained their escort positions. Finally, the audio returned. Ambassador Thelina, you have been granted permission to dock at our Mars command station. Admiral Grace Bennett has agreed to meet with you personally. She is the highest-ranking officer in the United Earth Defense Force. Whatever decision is made will come from her. Thelina felt a wave of relief wash over her. Thank you, Commander. I am grateful. Do not thank me yet, Nathan said. You came here looking for warriors. You may not like what you find. The Mars command station was carved into the side of a massive crater. The facility was enormous, stretching for kilometers beneath the red surface. Thousands of humans moved through its corridors, working, training, preparing. Delina saw soldiers drilling in exercise halls. She saw technicians maintaining weapons and vehicles. She saw pilots running simulations in virtual reality chambers. Everything was focused on one purpose: combat. Admiral Grace Bennett met Thelina in a simple office deep within the facility. She was an older woman with gray hair cut short and sharp blue eyes. She wore the same plain uniform as Nathan, with only slightly more decoration to indicate her rank. "Ambassador," Bennett said, gesturing to a chair. "Please sit. Tell me what you told Commander Cole. Leave nothing out." Thelina repeated her story. She added more details this time, sharing the full data package she had brought from the Council archives. Military reports, fleet compositions, territorial maps. Everything the Council knew about the Dr. Bennett reviewed the data with careful attention. She asked questions. Specific questions about supply lines and command structures and known weaknesses. Questions that revealed a deep understanding of warfare that made Thelina uncomfortable. When the briefing was complete, Bennett sat back in her chair. "The Dravok are not particularly clever," she said. "Their tactics are straightforward. Overwhelming force, direct assault, total subjugation. They have won because their enemies were weak, not because they were strong." Thelina felt a spark of hope. "Then, you believe they can be defeated?" "Anyone can be defeated," Bennett replied. "The question is the cost. And the method." She paused, studying Thelina closely. "Your council feared us. They kept us isolated because they believed we were too dangerous. Do you understand what you are asking by coming here?" Thelina nodded. "I am asking you to fight. No, you are asking us to do what we do best. And what we do best is not pleasant to watch. We do not fight the way your species fight. We do not seek honorable victory or noble sacrifice. We fight to win, completely, decisively. We break our enemies so thoroughly that they can never threaten us again. That is the human way of war." Thelina swallowed hard. "My people are dying, Admiral. Millions have already been killed. Millions more will follow. I do not care about honor or nobility. I care about survival." Bennett nodded slowly. "A decision had been made. Then you will have our help." She stood and walked to the door. "But you should warn your council. Tell them to stay out of our way. Tell them not to interfere with our operations. And tell them this: we are not coming to defend. We are coming to destroy." The message was sent to the Galactic Council within the hour. Admiral Bennett's words were simple and clear. "We are coming. Stay out of our way." 2 weeks later, the first human warships began their journey to the stars. Humanity was going to war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The great chamber of Nexus Prime had never been so quiet. 12 species sat in their designated seats, arranged in a perfect circle around the central platform. The orbital station floated peacefully above a gas giant, far from any inhabited world. It was built to be neutral ground, a place where the most powerful beings in the galaxy could meet and speak without fear. Today, that peace felt like a High Chancellor Varath of the Cathari stood at the center platform. His tall, thin body cast a long shadow across the polished floor. His silver eyes moved slowly from one delegate to the next. He had led this council for 30 years. He had guided them through trade disputes and territorial arguments. He had celebrated treaties and mourned the passing of old allies, but he had never faced anything like this. "The Dravok Dominion has broken the Century Accord," Varath said. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the tension beneath it. 3 of our member worlds have fallen. Cavith 3, Milos Prime, and the Valari colony of New Dawn. All 3 were attacked without warning, without mercy. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The delegates shifted in their seats. Some looked at their data screens. Others simply stared at the floor. Counselor Mector of the Grawl slammed his massive fist against his armrest. He was a large creature, covered in thick gray scales. His species had once been warriors themselves, before they learned the ways of peace. How did this happen? Mector demanded. Our intelligence networks reported nothing. The Dravok have been quiet for 100 years. They signed the accord alongside all of us. Vareth nodded slowly. They signed the accord, yes. And then they spent 100 years building in secret. Hidden shipyards, underground training facilities, weapons factories buried deep within dead moons. They prepared for this war while we enjoyed our peace. Ambassador Thelina of the Valari rose from her seat. She was smaller than most council members, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Her people were known for their wisdom and their calm nature. But today, her hands trembled slightly. New Dawn held 40,000 of my people, she said quietly. I received the final transmission from the colony leader before communications were cut. She said the Dravok ships filled the sky like a swarm of insects. She said they gave no warnings, no demands. They simply began to fire. The chamber fell silent once more. Vareth continued his report. The Dravok war fleet numbered in the thousands. Their ground forces were vast and well-trained. Their weapons were modern and deadly. The combined forces of the Galactic Council were scattered across 100 peaceful systems. Their ships were designed for patrol and escort duties, not full-scale war. We are outmatched, Vareth admitted. Our projections suggest the Dravok could reach the core systems within 8 months. Perhaps sooner, if they press their advantage. Counselor Pion of the Lithori raised one of his long, segmented arms. His species communicated through a complex series of clicks and gestures, translated by the chamber systems. What are our options? The translation spoke. Surely we can negotiate. The Dravok must want something. Resources, territory. We can offer them concessions. Mector let out a harsh laugh. The Dravok do not want concessions. They want everything. They want to rule. That is all they have ever wanted. They agreed to the Century Accord only because they were not strong enough to fight us all at once. Now, they believe they are. The debate continued for hours. Some delegates argued for immediate military action, gathering whatever forces they could. Others pushed for diplomatic solutions. A few suggested evacuation of the outer systems, pulling back to create a defensive line around the core worlds. None of the options felt like victory. They all felt like different ways to lose Dodd. As the discussions grew more desperate, Ambassador Thelina stood once more. She waited until the chamber quieted before she spoke. There is another option, she said carefully. One we have not discussed. Vareth looked at her with curiosity. Speak, Ambassador. Thelina took a deep breath. We could contact Earth. The silence that followed was different from before. It was not the silence of grief or fear. It was the silence of shock, of disbelief. Counselor Mector was the first to respond. He stood so quickly that his chair scraped loudly against the floor. You cannot be serious, he said. Earth is classified as a Class 7 threat, the highest classification we have. We decided decades ago to keep them isolated from galactic affairs. That decision was unanimous. Thelina nodded. I remember the decision well. I was one of those who voted for it. But circumstances have changed. Mector stepped toward the center platform. Do you remember why we classified them so highly? Do you remember what we learned when we first observed their world? He activated the central display. Images appeared in the air above the platform. Old images from the first observation missions to Earth nearly a century ago. 2 global wars within 30 years of each other, Mector said. Millions of casualties in each. They developed weapons capable of destroying all life on their planet, and they built thousands of them. They aimed those weapons at each other and came within minutes of firing them on multiple occasions. The images shifted. Battlefields filled with destruction. Cities reduced to rubble. Soldiers marching in endless columns. They treat warfare as an art form, Mector continued. They write books about it. They study it in their schools. They build monuments to their greatest warriors. They have fought more wars than we can count, and they show no signs of stopping. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. Ambassador Thelina did not look away from the images. Yes, she said simply. They are dangerous. That is precisely why we need them. The chamber erupted in argument. Delegates shouted over each other. Some demanded that Thelina retract her suggestion. Others asked questions about Earth's current military capabilities. A few sat in stunned silence, considering the possibility. High Chancellor Varath raised his hand, calling for order. Slowly, the noise died down. Ambassador Thelina raises a valid point, Varath said carefully. Our enemies are powerful. Perhaps we need allies who are equally powerful. But the risks of involving humanity are extreme. We do not know how they would react to learning of our existence. We do not know if we could control them once they entered the conflict. Councillor Mector spoke again, his voice lower now. You speak of controlling them. That is a fantasy. No one has ever controlled humanity. They barely control themselves. If we invite them into this war, we may save ourselves from the Dravok, only to face a far greater threat. The debate continued until the station's artificial lights dimmed to simulate evening. No resolution was reached. The council remained divided, trapped between the fear of what the Dravok would do and the fear of what humanity might do. As the delegates left the chamber, Ambassador Thelina remained in her seat. She stared at the empty platform where the images of Earth's wars had been displayed. Her people were dying. Her colony had been destroyed. And she knew, with terrible certainty, that the council would debate and delay until it was too late. She made a decision. That night, she boarded her personal vessel and set a course for the edge of known space, for the boundary that no galactic vessel had crossed in 60 years. She set a course for Earth. Behind her, on the border world of Cavith 3, Dravok ground forces began their march. The screams of the innocent filled the air. The dying reached toward empty skies, praying for salvation that would not come. Not yet, but soon.